The Four Absolutes of the Oxford Group. Absolute Purity, Part 1. My name is Steve Van Einderstein, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. I am looking forward to digging into the next absolute for this series, and we are going to be going into absolute purity. Now, this is, I'm looking forward to it because it's just, that word's a heavy word. I feel like it's been one that has been almost given a bad connotation, a bad association, because of what people think it means or what it represents to them. But it's a really cool, I don't know if cool is the right term, really interesting topic to broach, honestly, and to actually take a look at. So I'm really excited to read it with you guys and tear it apart a little bit and really get down to the roots of what it's talking about, because there's a lot here. There's a lot in this reading. This is actually the page count shortest of the four, but comparatively to Absolute Honesty, it has a lot in it. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. Please go ahead, like, subscribe, follow whatever platform you're on that you're seeing this, please. The support is always appreciated. Thank you so much for everything. And I am looking forward to the feedback too. So let's go ahead and get started. So I will be reading from a first edition of this, known as the book, What is the Oxford Group? And this was kind of like the big book for the Oxford Group, from my understanding. It has a lot of their information, why they did the things they did, things like that. So it's kind of like the instruction manual, I guess, and what they practice and why they practice it. So let's get started. This is the second absolute from the book, What is the Oxford Group? Absolute purity. Absolute purity. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which outwardly appear beautiful, but inwardly are full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. Matthew 23:27. Fear to do base, unworthy things is valor. If they be done to us, to suffer them is valor too. Ben Jonson. Absolute purity. To the pure all things are pure, but to them that are defiled and unbelieving nothing is pure. But both their mind and their conscience are defiled. They profess that they know God, but by their works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. Titus 1:15-16. Absolute purity is not only a law of Christian life, demanding a clean mind in a clean body. It is a much larger word. It embraces clean conduct in business and work and play, interest in world affairs, and our use of our possessions, our attitude towards relations, friends, and acquaintances. In this sense, absolute purity is akin to absolute honesty. Purity is being honest to the best side of our natures, mental, physical, and spiritual. It does not of necessity mean dullness. There is adventure in purity. Blessed are the pure in heart, said our Lord, and the in heart is a secret to real purity. There is no worse hypocrite than he who is outwardly pure, but unpure in his heart, forgetting that although man sees only the man, God sees the soul. All the outward restraint possible is of no significance if the heart festers with impurity. It is typical of some people who pretend to be shocked at some seeming indecency that their own secret thoughts are teeming with indecencies. They arrogate to themselves the external purity of a lovely flower, inviting admiration for its exquisite quality of color and form, but behind the velvet delicacy of its petals is a heart rotten and worm-eaten. When our souls stand naked before God and he sees us in our utter simplicity, we face the only test of real purity. Life today revolves around impurity of thought, motives, and conduct. Keep moving at all costs is a cry that goes up without ceasing day and night. Don't stand still or you'll be knocked down and trampled on. Knock the other person down before he can strike a blow at you. He intends to rob you, so why not rob him first? Newspaper proprietors. Send up the circulation of your newspapers and beat your competitors by publishing filth called confessions. Notoriety has a market value. Murderer, sell your life story for publication to the highest bidder. There's money in it, and you may even escape the gallows to enjoy it, if the lawyers hadn't taken it up for their fees. If you don't escape the gallows, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing you'll be remembered for your crime and your confessions for many generations to come. Your name will be a household one, and that's better than being a nobody. So, advertise. You've been divorced several times? Tell the world. The prosaic public like that sort of thing. They'll envy you, and when you marry again, they'll talk about your fascination. You drug? Then out with your experiences. Lay bare your soul, your torments, your hideous dreams, and then your name will be bill-posted throughout the city. When you are taken before the magistrates, crowds will fight to get into the court. You'll be featured on the front page of picture papers. People will stare at you. You'll be in the limelight. Your sins are your salvation from a drabness of life, so advertise them. That's life. And life's so short, and who knows if there's anything after. And so the world races round. Publicity, which is mistaken for honesty, moral dirt, physical degeneracy, lying, swindling, adultery, they are not impurities, the moderns say. In this world where everything is speed and everything is judged by its financial value, they are assets. Souls are for sale cheap. No wonder some of us ask how we can possibly live or think purely, and the modern paganism of the world makes it impossible. Some say it is silly and a waste of our time to try it. Of course it is if we do not know peace, or want to know it, or do not realize that the Holy Spirit, for the temptations that the power of Christ takes away, gives back in return real happiness and constructive consolation 1,000-fold. The pure in heart do not only see God, but hear him. They know that absolute purity is never in vain. Sex is the word that either makes people pretend to shudder at its sound and the thought of its implications, or makes them sit up and take notice. In the mind of many people, sex still remains rather a sordid invention of nature that is best not spoken of at any time, let alone discussed openly. To others, continence is impossible. Sex is their all in all, their world that revolves around it, and all its trappings. Sex is love to them, the vitality in an otherwise humdrum world. They earn money for it, dress for it, live for it, and dream of it. Without this blatant absorbing sex obsession, they can conceive no life possible for them. Everything that they do is traceable to sex domination. Impurity. What is that, they ask? There is no such word as impurity to those who have made sex their god. Those others who deliberately put sex beyond the pale of discussion and consign it to the darkness of ignorance are often dangerous sinks of impurity themselves. Their whispers are even more destructive than the voices that shout sex from the housetops. Their veiled innuendos and allusions to sex often bring a blush to the cheek of the normal person more readily than a healthy allusion to sex when what allusion is in its natural place. Impurity is the reason for these whisperings, not the purity whose people delude themselves it is. And impurity, which is disguised as purity, is impurity of the most harmful kind. And that's where we're going to end. Wow. It's like that was written today. That's my first impression of it. maybe I have a distorted understanding of what 100 years means, but the reality of it is was written in published in 1933, so it was written before that. So we're rounding 100 years of it being written and reviewed and then published. And this sounds like it was written for today's world, like in this modern era, where after all of this expansion and technological growth and change, we still have these problems. We have these same problems, only they are worse. They have been able to manifest in such dramatic and different ways now because of all the information and the technology and everything going on. And to read this and have it be so absolutely relevant to what we're doing today is absolutely incredible to me. I'm constantly amazed at the warnings in this book, or the similarities in this book to previous times and to today. It was like they knew what was coming. They told us what to watch out for, and a lot of times we missed the mark a lot of time. But let's dig into it. I've got a couple of quotes I want to read, and some personal observations of this chapter. So I do want to note that the first quote that we talked about was from Matthew 23:27. That's obviously taken from the Bible. The second quote that was stated right at the beginning of the chapter was from a guy named Ben Jonson. And he was actually a playwright back in, I think, the 1800s was what it was. And this is a quote from his play, Sejanus, His Fall. I'm not familiar with it. If you are, let me know what it is in the comments. But that fear to do base unworthy things is valor. If they be done to us, to suffer them is valor too. So that's the opening two quotes for absolute purity. Really stressing the fact of this purity of conduct, regardless of external circumstance, and also purity of our internal life, our thought life, our intentions and our beliefs in our heart. And then we start the actual chapter, or this, with another biblical quote from Titus 1:15-16. And I really enjoyed that reading from Titus. It was, it really talked about state of mind in 1:15, where it was like, to the defiled, everything's defiled, right? So what you have in your heart will manifest in your mind, which will manifest in how you see the world and your perspective. So, which is not new information. We've done this a lot. And this is just another example of why it's so important to actually practice these spiritual principles and grow in these spiritual ways, because this absolute purity, I know it's a tall order, but this is what we should be aiming for. This is what we should be really going for here. So I'm excited to really dig into this. And the first paragraph, I'm going to read the whole first paragraph again. Because it just gives a great almost definition of what we're working with here. So absolute purity is not only a law of Christian life demanding a clean mind in a clean body. It is a much larger word. So it encompasses a whole lot more. It embraces clean conduct in business, in work and play, interest in world affairs, our use of our possessions, our attitude toward relations, friends, and acquaintances. In this sense, absolute purity is akin to absolute honesty. Purity is being honest to the best side of our natures, mental, physical, and spiritual. It does not of necessity mean dullness. There is adventure in purity. So it's not only a clean mind and body, but also clean conduct, clean behavior, clean perspective, right? So we're getting back to this good behavior emanating from yourself, for the right reasons, doing the right thing for the right reasons because it's the right thing to do, right? So the inside being clean as well. So we have appropriate engagement in all areas of our life, not just one or two, not just in healthy habits for ourselves physically, or not just a healthy mind, but how we interact with people, how we interact with the world, how we address world problems, how we address our communities, how we address what we do for fun, even, right? A lot of us like to store our little selfishness and self-centeredness in that spot right there, the play part, right? And or we think work does not need to be included in these absolutes, right? Because it's moral integrity is moral integrity, and business is business, and that doesn't work that way. It's either everywhere or it's nowhere, right? Because if you're still acting that way in one place, it's still in your heart somewhere. That selfishness, that self-centeredness, that impurity, as he calls it in this chapter, as we are calling it in this chapter, is much, much different. So it's still within you, and we have to work to rid ourselves of it. So coming from a recovery background, recovery from substance use, a 12-step background, a little bit for myself, this reminds me of what would be the 12th step there, the practice these principles in all our affairs, right? Like, we're not just bringing it into the singular realm of stopping using substances. We're bringing it into our conduct on a daily basis, on a moment by moment basis, as we engage with absolutely everybody in any type of way. So there's a lot of influence on the Oxford group on 12-step, and I think this was part of it. So it says, how did they phrase it? 1 second here. I want to say it again. Purity is being honest to the best side of our natures, mental, physical, and spiritual. So I really love that line. So it's to bring out the utmost moral quality in all aspects of our lives, right? So we bring honesty into every aspect of our life. We bring love into every aspect of our life. Forgiveness, kindness, justice, fairness, courage, faith, hope, service, discipline. We bring all of that into every aspect of our lives. We bring things of the utmost moral quality. That is purity in all of our interactions, right? Every person we come into contact with, every person we talk to, every action that we take has to be made up of the utmost moral quality. It's a big order, I know, but it's something to aim at. We're human. I understand that. I'm human. I am not perfect. This is probably one of the hardest ones for me to actually have upkeep, because sometimes I don't realize when it's getting corrupted, when it's getting twisted, and my selfishness comes in. And I understand that, but this is the gold standards we should be shooting for, is absolute purity in all things, the utmost moral quality in everything that we do. And it's in Christian terminology, it would be removing sin in all areas, right? So we practice high principled actions and morals, and remove sin. We remove the judgment. We remove the selfishness. We remove the lust, the vanity, the pride, the gluttony, the condemnation. All of those ones that have carried us so far in life that we thought served us will no longer serve us, right? And we have to get rid of them. We have to practice in a way that has some moral integrity. Not just over here, not just over there, everywhere. Absolutely everywhere in all of your actions and behaviors. Because it comes from inside. And then it manifests in every area of your life, right? If you were just forcing an external change, forcing a behavioral change without looking at the thinking and the beliefs behind it, it's not going to be permanent. And that's really what we're getting to with this purity thing here, right? We're getting to purity of soul, purity of heart, purity of belief. And there was a great quote, and it was, man sees only man. So when we just stop the external behaviors, man only looks at those to see if we're doing well, right? But We're great at forcing external changes, at least temporarily, to get what we want if we're still being selfish, but they usually come out in the wash. But man only sees man, the external being of man. God sees the soul. God sees the soul. You can't hide that. You can't hide your lack of authenticity and integrity. You can't hide your darkest secrets in the corner of your mind and your heart and play them out where no one can see them anymore. It requires true and authentic change. Don't be the hypocrite that that first verse was talking about. It was talking about the in Matthew, the sepulcher, where it just is all dressed up or it's all polished and beautiful white on the outside, but it's filled with death and bones, and it's just unclean inside, but on the outside it's clean. There's another verse about cups and things like that in the Bible that I can't necessarily bring to mind right now how it went, but don't be the hypocrite. Don't be the one that only practices externally and keeps your heart and your soul in that corrupted place, in that place of selfishness and self-centeredness and impurity. So much going into this just in that first page. And God sees your true heart, and it always comes out in the end, right? In the end, your true intentions usually always are shown. Almost, I'll say it that different. In the end, your true intentions are always shown. What you hold in your heart will come out. And people know, too. See, this is the thing. People sense it when you're being disingenuous, sense it when you're doing it for the wrong reasons. We talk about this often on this podcast, right? When we can force an external change, but people will understand there's a disconnect between what we're doing and what we actually want to do. And though it might be the right thing to do, we're doing it because someone told us to, or we're doing it because we don't want to get in trouble, which is not necessarily the right reason. It's a reason to get started with, but that change has to come from inside. Or people will always feel that space between the action and your true intentions. And this was kind of illustrated when it talked about, it brought up how people are so shocked or outraged at others' impurities or indecencies, I think is the word they used, and how they'll just like run with it, and they'll just be so mortified by it. But the reality of it is, those are the people that usually have the worst thoughts. The ones that are just in outrage over these things, that can't believe it's happening, that can't understand, or they want to make a show almost of their disgust with a behavior. Those are usually the people that have some deep, dark secrets that they're holding on to that they don't want to ever come to light, right? They're the ones that are usually separated from their authenticity. They have a outward presentation that they want people to see, but they're terrified for people to see under the skin. They're terrified for people to see what's actually running through their mind. So they give this false outrage over these things. They can't believe it when someone gets caught doing something, whatever it is. And so it's just, I'm glad that they brought that up, because it gives a lot of perspective. It gives a lot of understanding as to what they're actually doing and how people actually behave with this kind of stuff. And then the author goes on to say they arrogate to themselves the external purity of a lovely flower, inviting admiration for its exquisite quality of color and form, but behind the velvet delicacy of its petals is a heart rotten and worm-eating. And arrogant, by the way, is to claim without justification. So these are the people that dress up the outside. They do the actions that they can to make sure people think that they're this beautiful flower, lovely flower, this perfect thing, this thing of purity. But inside, they're just rotten. They're rotten and worm-eaten heart. They're just spiritually dead. They're doing it for selfish and self-centered and insecure and fearful reasons. They're not doing it to actually be a good person. They're doing it so you think they're a good person. I used to do this, to be fair. This was one of the worst things that I would do was I like to put on a presentation. I like to put on almost a show for the world to believe I was a good person, because I didn't believe I was a good person. I had all of this junk running through my head. I had all of these things that I didn't want to talk about. I had all of these things I was scared that people would find out about, So I wanted to just polish up the outside to the best of my ability, and that didn't work out that well for me. That lack of integrity, that lack of authenticity comes in full form eventually. And it just chews you up and destroys you, corrupts you from the inside. That was my experience. So this disingenuous and false appearance is just forcing the change without doing the actual spiritual work, without doing the actual change of behavior, the actual change in life, and the change in heart and soul, and that connection to a God of your understanding, right? There's no spiritual reasoning behind it. It's just let them think I'm good, right? Because I have all this crap going on in the back, right? So it's I love this part of it. It speaks to my soul in that way, because that's how I used to be. I was not a perfect person for a long time. And to see it put down on paper like that knows that there's been people like me for all of time. They saw me coming 100 years ago, which is kind of encouraging, right? Because there's a solution to all this terrible stuff, and there's growth, and you can change and become different. And thank God for that. So let's get into the next part that they dig into. And I can't believe how relevant this is today, right? Because what he talks about in this next section of just societal functioning in regards to glorifying impurity, in regards to glorifying our indecency, in regards to glorifying our sin, if no other way to really say it, and how people will willingly get up there and just sell themselves off, use their sins as bargaining chips. I'm going to reread this again, and I want you to remember this whole quote is talking about how this is a huge sense of impurity. This is people monetizing their impurity, like the utmost corruption of society. And then think about what applies still to today. I'll talk about it a little bit afterwards, but we're selling our integrity for notoriety and financial gain. And he talks about here. So it's a long reread of a part of this, but I think it's necessary. Life today revolves around impurity of thought, motives, and conduct. Keep moving at all costs is the cry that goes up without ceasing day and night. Don't stand still or you'll be knocked down and trampled on. Knock the other person down before he can strike a blow at you. He intends to rob you, and so why not rob him first? Newspaper proprietors, send up the circulation of your papers and beat your competitors by publishing filth called confessions. Notoriety has a market value. Murderer, sell your story for publication to the highest bidder. There's money in it, and you may escape the gallows to enjoy it if the lawyers haven't taken it for their fees. If you don't escape the gallows, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing you'll be remembered for your crime and your confessions for many generations to come. Your name will be a household one, and that's better than being a nobody. So, advertise. Remember, that was to the murderers. To the murderers. That was what was said. You've been divorced several times? Tell the world. The prosaic public like that sort of thing. They'll envy you. And when you marry again, they'll talk about your fascination. You drug, then out with your experiences. Lay bare your soul, your torments, your hideous dreams, and then your name will be bill posted throughout the city. When you are taken before the magistrates, crowds will fight to get into the court. You will be featured on the front page of the picture papers. People will stare at you. You'll be in the limelight. Your sins are your salvation from the drabness of life, so advertise them. That's life. And life's so short, and who knows if there's anything after. What? We still do this. We still do this. And it has not gotten any better. It has actually gotten exponentially worse. How many Netflix specials are there about serial killers? How many documentaries have been made about mass murderers? How many serial killers are household names now? Why are we glorifying this type of impurity, this type of selfishness and harm and destruction? Why is this something that we've become so fond of? And why are people taking it and encouraging it? It's because it makes them money. People want their name known. Their selfishness and their pride want a legacy. They want to be infamous, right? It just blows my mind that we give a platform to these people. Not only do we give a platform, we encourage it. We cultivate money off of it. And it's not for educational purposes or awareness. It's just purely consumption. It's purely for a personal sense of satisfaction and thrill and pleasure. And when you look at it through this lens, it's kind of disgusting. What are we actually doing here? What are we doing? Why are we glorifying these things? Why are we remembering those and carrying on a legacy of those that have committed abominations? Should we learn from them? Yes, absolutely. Should we grow and try to mitigate that from happening? Yeah, absolutely. But how many influencers are there that just play a murder video and then make comments on it? Not for any other reason except for to get us enthralled with somebody else's sin and debauchery and vile nature. It's heartbreaking. And I want to make sure I'm being transparent and honest here. That though I believe that now, I haven't always been this way. And I've always watching those types of things used to be something I enjoyed, right? They used to be something that I would pursue as well. So I understand the allure of it. You can get lost in the fascination of it, right? You can get lost in the distraction and we almost fall in love with someone's willingness to take such vile actions that we could never ourselves take. I know that might sound messed up, but that's what people relate to and they want to be horrified by, right? We want to be those people that are in utter disgust and shock when we have all of this stuff in our own head. Might not be exactly the same, but there's vile things there, right? That false outrage we want to have. I can't believe that's happening. It's incredible. The amount of money that gets put into this and the industry that's been developed from people literally selling their impurity, selling their sin, selling their depravity. And it's going on every single day, and it's becoming more and more and more. And we stand people, all of the wrong people, on pedestals that we should not be doing. Why do these serial killers have these specials about them? Why do families know the names of long past serial killers? What's the point of that? Why are they idolized and glorified? Why are they written into some record book? I don't understand now. When I step back and I look at it, I don't see the value of the worth of it. It's kind of terrifying, actually. There was a great line at that last, or in the next paragraph after what I stopped reading. And it says, souls are for sale cheap. That doesn't just cut your heart out. It's the truth. It is the absolute truth. Souls are for sale cheap. No wonder some of us ask how we can possibly live or think purely when the modern paganism of the world makes it impossible, because we're surrounded by it. We are absolutely surrounded by impurity in our business practices, in our personal lives, in the social media we consume, the movies we consume, the relationships that we have. At every single aspect, impurity is actually almost fostered. It's pushed. It's recommended. It's preferred, honestly. And it's difficult. I understand why people think this way, because it's literally everywhere. It's this perspective of how are we supposed to live a pure life in this world is a real one, because it's overwhelming. It is absolutely overwhelming because it is everywhere and difficult to avoid. But you have to at least start somewhere. You have to start and stop seeking it out. That's the first place to start. Stop seeking it out, because it will more than enough will just randomly come across your screen, randomly come across the billboard, randomly come out of people's mouths, whatever it might be. But you do not need to seek it out. And then slowly but surely take intentional actions to reduce it and reduce it and reduce it, and do it as much as you can. And again, this is a perfect ideal. This is what we should be aiming for. I don't know if purity's, maybe this is a problem for me, but I don't know if purity is actually obtainable at this point in this world we live in, but we should definitely still try. We should definitely make these intentional attempts. We should definitely take back the power and our strength from all of these pitfalls that we're given to happily step in this world. And when we do that, we're given a promise. It says there, the pure in heart do not only see God, but hear him. They know absolute purity is never in vain. So if you want to improve that connection to a God of your understanding, if you want to get closer to God, whatever your God is, whether it's the universe, that source, the mother nature, deity of any kind, Abrahamic religion, whatever it might be, if you want to be closer, pursue purity. Remove those blocks that cut us off from hearing God's will for our life, from hearing the voice of God, from seeing what he would have us be, what he would have us do. The impurity is what puts up these blocks. The selfishness, the self-centeredness is what puts up these blocks. We need to pursue purity in everything that we do, and we will find that our connection with our God is closer than we've ever been. It's stronger than it's ever been. This is where the work needs to happen, this purity of heart, as I said there. The pure in heart do not only see God, but hear him. Well, that sounds like a pretty beautiful thing to me. And I can tell you, as I've really strove to do this in my life, my connection with the God of my understanding is only improved. So I can co-sign that. I can definitely attest to that promise. Now, the last two paragraphs of today's reading. Sex. Everyone's favorite topic. And it's a touchy subject. I mean, especially back then when this was read. We're a lot more open about things today, I'd say, is a good way to say it. There's been a lot more normalized today than it was 100 years ago. So what's amazing to me is this was written 100 years ago, and these words ring more true today than they did then. Everything that is said about sex. It talks about that we live in a sex culture today. Everything is about sex, or at least certain parts of it are. right? Certain parts of it are just completely revolve themselves around sex. And it talks about how sex has become an all-encompassing thing for people. And that's especially true today. Most not most, at least half of the news stories have something to do with sex or gender or identity of some sort concerning that. So this hasn't gotten better. This has actually gotten progressively worse in the last 100 years. And he gives this description of it. Sex is their all in all, their world that revolves around it and its trappings, right? So I don't know, you tell me. Do you think this has improved? Absolutely not. Like I said, the development of technology and the internet and these things has made it actually much worse, because people can explore these impurities online facelessly. And then people are more than willing to financially gain from it. And people are more than willing to gain popularity and prestige from exploiting this side of things today, too. It's just the mutually condoned exploitation of human beings and their impurities. And it's just been normalized today. There's so much content out there now online from various websites that I don't, for YouTube reasons, I'm not going to be naming anything like that. But there's so many things out there, so many industries, we'll call it, that have sprung up for people to just fully dive in and indulge themselves in this sexual immorality, this sexual impurity. But it goes much deeper than just that. We're talking about discussions around, like a culture based around discussions around sex, attraction, sexual orientation, gender. People define themselves by these things now. It's not human beings that have preferences. It's people's identities are now based around who they like to have sex with and their gender identity. That's a defining piece of them now. Sex has become integrated into our society in such a deep rooted way. It's almost terrifying, right? It's had so much discussion around it. It's had, especially in recent years, right? There's been so much discussion around it. There's been so much time and money and awareness and notoriety come from it. It's we'll touch on it later, but it's become a major part of our society. And this is coming from both sides. Those defending these things, those dismissing these things, right? Wherever you're coming from, too much time has been placed on it. Whether you're embracing it, you're rejecting it, whether you condone it or you condemn it. Whichever side you're on, we're talking about it way too much. It's become a focal point of our world, at least here in the Western world. And entire just industries. It just blows your mind, doesn't it? Entire industries are based around this now. People have built careers off of this now, this sex-obsessed culture we have. People's entire lifestyle. And it's so corrupting to their soul. It's so corrupting to their integrity and authenticity. And we're just digging deeper, it feels like. It continues to go to different levels and shift and change and form. It's incredible. It's absolutely consuming for so many people. It's infiltrated every aspect of our lives, right? Whether it's the books you read, the movies you watch, the social media you have, the news you watch has conversations about sex all the time. Again, I don't care which side of the aisle you are on this. There's way too much talk about it. It's become, it, there's no, I'm going to jump right to this quote. There is no such word as impurity to those who have made sex their god. And that is what has happened in our society. Sex is one of the gods of society, along with money and fame. In the Western world, these things have entrapped our minds. They've entrapped our souls. And we need to realize that. We need to realize that that sex has become something that's worshipped in today's society in so many ways. It promotes, and this normalization of this worship of sex has promoted just this selfishness, this self-centeredness, this selfish pleasure and selfish gratification. It's allowed for these impurities of our soul to actually be embraced and then given a platform to be normalized as okay and acceptable. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be condemned or you should be ridiculed for these things, but they don't need to be encouraged, do they? Is there purity about that? I don't believe so. Is that our highest moral quality? I don't believe so. So there's that side where it's just all encompassing, where it's just people are, as they said, shouting it from the rooftops. But there's the flip side as well of this, those who banish it and never talk about it. People that never want to actually have this conversation, don't want to engage in this conversation. Act like sex isn't really a thing. It's a horrific indecency that no one should ever address. Now, I'm not saying that. There's a time and a place and appropriateness for sex involved with relationships, especially more so sex involved with your significant other, and conversations. It's not something that needs to be removed from society completely, obviously. I think that would be going way too far the other way. But it definitely needs to be appropriately placed. And those who would just like to have it completely removed, they're usually some of the most sick people, actually. The scandals in religious institutions, I think, show that. Those who condemn it and put it so far out of the realm of possibility and mind and don't think it should ever be discussed, those are the ones that are probably the sickest. Because it's still all encompassing for those who want to stand on that soapbox and be condemning of those, right? Instead of viewing them as people that need help or lost or whatever, however you want to present it, it doesn't mean that they're damned people. They're usually obsessed with sex more than the ones that are actually acknowledging their obsession with sex, which is incredible when you think about it that way. It's like those who are obsessed with not drinking in the 12-step world, right? If you're thinking about and talking about and drinking all the time, drinking is running your world. But if you're thinking about not drinking and talking about not drinking and you're just worried about not drinking your entire life, drinking is still your obsession with the world. It's the same thing with sex, right? It's so they put it in this behind closed doors. So it's almost this hidden impurity that they're trying to mask. And it's almost like it's even more harmful. It's like the forbidden fruit type thing, right? They want it even, people like that want it even more when they've condemned it and made it so wrong. It's like, yeah, it becomes more tempting and it becomes more damaging, really, at the end of the day. And there's a great quote about it. Impurity is the reason for these whisperings, because it's talking about how people just whisper about it. Those who absolutely put it beyond the pale is the way he said it. Have these little whisperings and have these allusions to it, right? Have these really, really strong experiences just to avoid the conversation, but to still acknowledge it. Impurity is the reason for these whisperings, not the purity those people delude themselves it is, right? So they think they're being pure because they're not acknowledging it at all. Not true. That's not purity. So it's not the purity that these people delude themselves it is. And impurity, which is disguised as purity, is impurity of the most harmful kind, right? So it's an obsession with sex that is masked by purity, saying we're just going to reject it completely, not acknowledge it at all, and let it grow in the dark. That's what happens. It grows in the dark because they haven't actually changed their soul. They haven't actually changed their minds about it. They haven't actually gone through and changed and pursued a more purified soul or belief and mind regarding it. They just put it away and let it fester and grow and become this horrifically harmful thing. And it brings up a good point that just in general, any impurity masked with purity, which means that like forced external change and just this, just similar to that, the sepulcher that it talked about, just this polished, beautiful outside filled with this rot, is so extremely harmful. It's got so much damaging things, or it has so much more damaging potential in it, because a claim of purity and perfection, when it's not actually what's going on, just causes so much damage. So much. So, but that brings us to the end of the first half of the reading of Absolute Purity. In the Four Absolutes and what is the Oxford Group. That's a heavy one. There is so much about it, and I know we touched on some really say touchy subjects today. I'd love to get your feedback on it, to be honest, to see what's your thoughts. And so I'm looking forward to that over the next week until we get to part 2 next week. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you next week. Until next time. Thanks.